Hello everybody, my name is Rainer. Welcome to my channel, Rainier Books. Time for a Sunday sum up, and today is actually Sunday the 5th of June. Tomorrow is Sweden's National Day. I want to tell you about the books that I finished, the books that I did not finish, and the books that I'm planning to read in the next couple of days. So let's get started. 12 days ago, 19 children and 2 adults were killed in the town of Uvalde, Texas. And I made a video about it where I recommended 10 books that are dealing with both gun violence and shootings and school shootings in the United States, but also with guns in the United States. We have no reason to forget this kind of topic, and that's why I actually looked up what happened during the weekend that is still going on as we speak. We are 9 hours ahead of California, which means that this day is still only half over on the American West Coast. During the weekend, yesterday, 3 people were killed and 12 were injured in a shooting in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 3 people were killed, another 14 were injured today as we speak in the night hours in Chattanooga, Tennessee, outside a nightclub. 1 woman was killed and 7 people were injured in another shooting today in Somerton, South Carolina. And 2 people were killed and 2 injured in a shooting in Mesa, Arizona. And finally, and these are just 5 examples of what happened yesterday, and most of it today actually, in 2 deaths in Wheeling, Illinois, just outside Chicago. It shows that the problem of gun violence is not only an everyday problem, an every hour problem in the United States. And I recommend to you Michael Moore's excellent podcast about this in his podcast Rumble. He rumbled about this, and he is telling us, and he's making very provocative thesis that America is a country that loves its guns more than its children. And this is the only country in the world, Michael Moore says, where there are more guns than people, 400 million guns for 300 million people. And those who actually own guns, and this is about half of the population, have an average of 9 guns per person. I will come back to these numbers until something has happened. Not next week, not in 2 weeks, but from time to time. I just want to remind myself and you what's going on. So let's talk about the books and the books that I've read. 2 books I finished last week. One of them is All the Lovers in the Night by the Japanese author Mieko Kawakami. Translated from the Japanese by Sambat and David Boyd. The 3rd novel by the great Japanese author that has been translated by Sambat and David Boyd. All the Lovers in the Night is about a woman. Her name is Fujiko Iri. She is living as a proofreader in Tokyo. She actually comes from the mountain town of Nagano, where we had Olympic Winter Games once. So she is living a very, very lonely life, and she is not interested in anything, it seems. First, as we meet her in the beginning of the novel, she is employed. Then another woman who she is not befriended but acquainted with is giving her the advice to go and independent and to work as an independent freelance reader of books, which she finally does. And this book is a pretty lonely book. It's a pretty depressing book in a lot of respects. But then in the end, and Kawakami always confronts us with women, with her women heroes that are not usually the focus of literature, like a lonely proofreader who has some kind of features, maybe from the autistic spectrum, who is not having any relationships, who's not traveling anywhere. She's just living her life. She starts to drink a lot of sake and wine and beer. We get a reason for that. She meets some other women. There are 4 women in this book, and all of these 4 women are about the same age, and they also seem to be several possible ways to go in Japanese society. This is about women in Japanese society, in society in general, how their roles are defined by men, how their fate is very often decided by men. And it is about her relationship to Mutsuzuka, which is a man who's a lot older than her. They meet very arbitrarily when Fujiko tries to enroll for a course at some sort of community college in Tokyo. They meet each other and they have a very restrained relationship. They meet in a cafe. They never have physical contact at all for a long time. They just have a coffee and they just part, and they're bowing and bowing and bowing. What is the usual phrase, the usual hello and goodbye bow in Japan. So they're very conservative in their social codes that they are using, which are the codes in Japanese society. So this is a book with, again, Kawakami, only 220 pages, sort of. She, again, is giving us so much to talk about, so much philosophy, so much about women's role in society, and so much hope in the end also. She's a very fascinating writer. She's one of my favorite writers of today. I haven't read Breast and Eggs yet. I read Heaven, the novel that came out before, and this one came out like 10 years ago in Japan, so we are way behind her production, but hopefully more books by Kawakami, I'm sure that they will be translated into English. I will do a single review about this book where I talk more about All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. The second book I finished this morning, actually I have to thank NetGalley for this. Finally, another NetGalley book that I finished, folks. This book actually was published on the 24th of May in this year, so about a week ago in the United States, and I think also in the United Kingdom. It is you would call it a thriller by Chris Pavone or Chris Pavone. The book is called Two Nights in Lisbon. And in this book, it's the second novel that I read by Chris Pavone, or Chris Pavone. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. But it's a very interesting book. In the beginning, I sort of doubted if I would love it, but in the end, I really did. It's the second half of the book was so pacey, so fast, and so speedy, and so full of surprises and of suspense that I really enjoyed it very much. This is a book about a woman called Ariel. She is traveling to Lisbon, beautiful Portuguese capital, with her husband, with her newlywed husband, John, who's a couple of years younger than she is. They are only wed for 3 months. And one morning, John is there on a business trip. He wants to prolong the business trip by staying a few nights in Lisbon with his wife and going to Algarve, to the coast. And one morning, Ariel wakes up and she's alone in the hotel room. Her husband is gone. And he might have gone out for a walk. He might have disappeared. And the police is notified, the Portuguese police, but also the American embassy. And suddenly, this case turns into a history of national security for the United States, and very high ranks in the CIA are involved finally to solve this case, where nothing is what it seems, because Ariel has changed her name. Her name before was Laurel Turner. She was married to another guy. Why did she change her name? John, her husband, has changed his name. Why did he do that? And what has happened? What is in the backstory? Chris Pavone is telling this story always slowly what happens in the present, but then always referring to the past and sort of slowly revealing what happened in the past, which might have led to the kidnapping or the disappearance of John. I don't want to say more about this because that would be a spoiler, but it's a great summer read. If you like thrillers somehow, you might go for this one. Chris Pavone or Chris Pavone, Two Nights in Lisbon, out just for a week ago, and already on the bestseller list of the New York Times on number 14, I think, this week. These are the two novels that I finished. Two that I did not finish, and novels that I liked, but that I did not finish. So why did I do that? I DNF'd Jennifer Egan's novel, A Visit from the Goon Squad. What? Yes, I did. Her new novel, The Candy Room, is out, and I read a review about The Candy Room where someone said that, oh my gosh, if you have read The Goon Squad, you might be disappointed of The Candy Room. So that was influencing me somehow. And then the other reason for not finishing is that I got confused. I didn't have so much time to focus and to concentrate on my reading, so I read a couple of chapters, about 1/3 of the book, and I was confused about what had happened, because this book, A Visit from the Goon Squad, is a greatly told book, a Pulitzer Prize winning book, where Jennifer Egan is telling the story of this record producer Salazar in New York City and this woman who is working as his assistant. Her name is Sasha, in different kinds of stories, and they always hop from one decade to the other, from one role to the other. They change always the narrative style from every chapter. So it seems to be like a set of short stories which circles around the same kind of people, but it is, Jennifer Egan has said, I want this to be seen as a novel. Just wasn't the right time for me, and maybe I want to try The Candy Room first to not get disappointed reading The Candy Room when I finally finish A Visit from the Goon Squad, which I have to pick up again. The second book that I DNF'd, that was already 2 weeks ago, is a book called Careless by Kirsty Capes. Yeah, Careless by Kirsty Capes I did not finish. This was nominated, was on the long list for the Women's Prize, and I really liked the book. In a way, I was reading like 40, 50 pages of it. It is a story of a young woman who has been into social care as a child, as a teenager. And she, as a teenager, tells this story, and she gets pregnant from a boy, which she calls boy, that she doesn't love anymore, or she never has loved, but she's pregnant and she has problems because nobody wants to have to do anything with her. And I see where this goes. It's a story of upbringing, of coming of age. It's a story of development, and I think it's a very important story for a certain age group. It just didn't touch me that much that I wanted to finish it, so I stopped reading Careless by Kirsty Capes. But if you love coming of age stories, and if you're interested in how girls with all their difficulties, who have problems, who get up in social care like the author also grew up in like that, then absolutely go and read Careless by Kirsty Capes. Two books that are on my TBR for the next couple of days, called The Return by Dulce Maria Cadoso, who is a Portuguese author, and this takes us to Luanda in Angola in 1975. The Angolan War of Independence has been raging for at least a decade, but with the collapse of the Salazar dictatorship, defeat for the Portuguese is now in sight. Thousands of settlers are fleeing back to Portugal to escape the brutality of the Angolan rebels. And there's one boy, 15 years old, from Luanda who comes to Lisbon, and he starts his life in Lisbon, which is very difficult, in a suburb where returnee families are cramped into luxurious rooms by the dozen. These palatial surroundings are a cruel contrast with the reality of returnee life. So this is about Portugal and its former colony Angola, and the history and the fate of people who are connected to the war and to the aftermath of the colonial reign of Portugal over Angola. Very interesting, something that I really want to learn more about. And the second book is Laird Hunt's novel Zori, which many of you have raved about. It was nominated, I think it was longlisted at least for the National Book Award. It was a finalist, it says on the cover, on the backside here, for the National Book Award of Fiction. It's the life of a woman in Middle America, you could say, somewhere in the Middle American states. And Zori's life I will take a closer look at. This is what I'm reading. What are you reading? Have you read All the Lovers in the Night already? I will talk more about it. I saw a couple of great talks that Mieko Kawakami had with other authors, and I really recommend you to go out and watch for this. I will do a single review about Mieko Kawakami, but if you have read her already, please leave a note down below and tell me if you read Chris Pavone or Chris Pavone, however he's pronounced. Please tell me. I read The Expats, which was his first novel, and I really liked it too. So this seems to be a very interesting thriller author. He has done 5 novels so far. Maybe I should read number 2, 3, and 4 as well. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope that you are safe. I hope that you have a great time, a great reading time, and a great time in your life. Stay safe and see you very soon. Bye-bye.